You're not speaking, you're repeating. If your music feels robotic, it's because you're repeating patterns, not actually speaking, communicating, and expressing. So the same way that we would memorize a phrase in a foreign language that is not our native tongue and sort of echo the phrase, repeat the phrase, but not really have the connotation, the spirit of it, the history of it, or how people feel when they say it in that language, in that culture, when we have a memorized lick or a riff or a pattern in music and we say it on our horn with our voice on the piano, we're not really speaking. We're not communicating. We're repeating a pattern. And that's a hard pill to swallow because we spend oodles of time practicing scales and patterns and repetitions and licks and riffs and grooves. We spend a lot of time ingraining this because, as you know, learning a language step by step, alphabet letter one at a time, pronunciation slowly from the start to the finish of the word, and then the absorption and then making it flow, that takes a lot of effort and consistency and commitment, and it doesn't sound right or correct or expressive right away anyway. And so don't think of licks and riffs and language and vocabulary as shortcuts, but think of them as a way of assimilating the language the way that other people have already used it. So it could be as simple as a chord progression. If I'm playing the major 1 chord, where does that usually go? Well, there's places it can go, and in different genres and subgenres and different styles of music, it's more likely to go one place than the other. It could go to the 4 chord in almost any type of music. And going from the 1 chord to the 4 chord is a pattern. And if you're simply just vibing out on 1 to 4, whether you're a DJ working on your DAW, a producer, a violinist, or a singer doing the amen cadence, it doesn't ring as a thought pattern, as an expression, as a story. There has to be some sort of feeling behind it, and it can be as simple as sitting with that first moment and going to the next moment when you feel it. Maybe after you've added a melody to it. Maybe there's a certain way you're pulsating the chord. Maybe there's a feeling of groove before it moves. That can level you up from just repeating this pattern of 1 to 4 and actually communicating through it. If we haven't met, I'm EP Archer. This is Music Rebels Rising, where serious musicians break out of old patterns and finally create music that actually feels like them. What pattern do you need to break out of? What patterns are you using over and over that aren't working for you anymore or could work for you better if you approach them differently? If a chord progression has a certain amount of beats to it, 4 beats per chord, 2 beats per chord, 8 beats, whatever it may be, what if you change that up? What if you say, this is the order of the chords, but I'm going to wait until I feel it? Maybe that turns out to be 5 bars. All right, maybe that turns out to have a hold into it. And maybe that hold provides the space for your melody or for your idea or for your improvisation in a different way, and it unlocks a new way of speaking. It's like natural pauses in language and communication. We're not communicating to the beat. We're not like rapping to each other, saying something in a certain pattern and a beat and then waiting for the other person to speak. And then they say it exactly to the beat that we did. Like we're not speaking in that way. We have an idea and we say it with a certain amount of passion and tempo and resonance and excitement, volume and expression. And the person responds either in like kind or in contrast or in conflict or in argumentation. And all of that is exciting and it's fun as humans. And when you're practicing by yourself or you're alone, you're doing instrumental or vocal practice, it's easy to forget that it's a conversation. And it's the most important conversation you could have. The conversation with yourself, with your feelings, in your presence, in your grounding, connected to your emotion. And once you have that conversation, then having it with other musicians, with other music, with people in a situation, that's where the magic can happen. So should you memorize licks, riffs, patterns? Yeah, of course. But how are you using them? And are you iterating them, right? If I learn one pattern, and this is really common in jazz, you learn a pattern or a piece of vocabulary or something Charlie Parker played, or maybe it's just, one of your favorite players. Maybe it's a Wayne Shorter riff. But you learn a small nugget, right? And then you extrapolate. You do it in every key, then you mutate it. Maybe it was in minor and you mutate it to major, or maybe there was a natural 9 in it and you flat the 9. You iterate and you manipulate it and you mutate it. And then maybe you play it reverse. Maybe you play it upside down. We have software now. Lord knows you can, like, with a click of a button, you can create an inversion and a retrograde and a whole type of iteration on anything. And then, like, to me, there's a feeling. The reason why I like certain licks and certain players like Cannonball, there's a feeling behind what's happening there. And Thelonious Monk, that structured time push, there's definitely a message, a cardinality to what's happening. And for me, I like to, if I'm lifting something out of that, I want to lift the feeling. The feeling was like it's creating tension, or the feeling was ascension, or the feeling was blurting something out. And I want to find ways of enabling that feeling in myself. Otherwise, it's just notes, it's just language, it's just the alphabet. It's just spelling out a word, letter for letter. PLANETS, planets. But if you're talking about the planets and you're excited and maybe you get ringing of Gustav Holst in your head and the shimmering sounds that created epic movie soundtrack inspiration for years and years and years, that's different than saying the word planets, right? It has a totally different vibe and connotation. So if we can make sure we are not in a place of losing our phrasing awareness, losing our feeling, emotion, and story that came with this vocabulary or this language piece or this pattern, if we get out of just the pattern as it occurred and start iterating and variating and inverting and retrograding, if we think of our music as conversation, not execution, oh my gosh, it opens up. And when it's not that's why repetition feels empty. And music becomes language when we interact with it, not when we repeat it. You could walk up to someone in another country and speak a phrase in their language, and they can speak back to you, and you can have no idea what they're talking about, how they feel, body language, culture, customs. But if you spend some time in a country, immersed there, if you observe, if you listen, if you show up for things that are important to people of that language and of that culture and in that area, something different starts to click, and you can have a communicative experience without a lot of words, without repeating a bunch of phrases that you have memorized and learned so that you can find directions or order your food. But to truly have an experience and share that with someone. And with music, you have to share that experience first with yourself. And you know that when you practice robotically or menially in too much of a way that feels mundane and left brain and too ordered, over time, it loses its power and its punch. And for some of us, it loses that in the first 5 minutes. I don't know about you, but I am a person that cannot sit there and hammer down repetitive exercise after repetitive exercise. It is the opposite of why I do music. I do music to stay alive, to speak, to express, to feel, to connect, and to follow who I am through this other language expression and beautiful artwork. But the point is really that I can be who I am. I can express how I feel. I can say what I need to say. So I'll leave you with that. Go forward, feel how you feel, be who you are, and say what you're meaning to say. Stop repeating the patterns and start digging into who you are and how you say it. If this resonates, your music, your sound, join the revolution. Music Rebels Rising. I'll see you next time.